Hi, welcome back to the shop. Thanks for stopping by. This week's project, we're going to turn this maple burl that I've had since around 1999. It's about 13 inches across the long side. It's around 11 across the short side, and it is about 5 inches deep from the face to the bottom. It was sealed up with paint of some sort. Got a faceplate mounted to it. It is extremely hard. I broke a screw off actually putting the faceplate on. So I drilled my holes a little bigger for the next two. So I have 2 good screws in it, and I'll bring the tailstock up. And it's going to have a hole in it. I'm not going to cast it in resin because it's only going to have, I believe, this one void in it, and I think that'll look okay as it is. So I'm going to try and get a true bowl as I can. It's going to be not a natural edge. It's going to be a cut edge, not live. So this will be the bottom of the bowl, and this will be the top. So I'm going to put this on, and we'll see how we make out. All right, so I sanded this up off camera to 800 grit, and really happy with the finish on the outside of it. I'm going to put Danish oil on this, so I'm going to do that when the whole piece is completely turned, because I do have some wormholes and stuff in here, which I add to, in my opinion, but I don't want to get them wet so that they pick up sanding dust and they get trapped in there, and then I have to work to get them back out. One thing about wood that's as hard as this, it's tough to turn. Chisel wise, it dulls chisels quickly. I sharpened a lot of times on the outside of this so I wouldn't have any tear out, and the tear out part is really good. I didn't get very much tear out, none actually, but it sands super good when it's that hard. So I got a really nice shine on this. There's no finish of any kind on it. This is just a natural wood right here. Now I do have very faint cracks right here, and I'm going to see how they pan out once I get down. I may wind up taking this bowl just a little shallower to get clear of those. That's going to take me out of a little bit of this natural defect. This right here, a natural void. It's not a defect, I guess, in a burl. I'm scared I'm going to get down into this, and I don't want to break into this. So I want to try and stay above it. So we'll see what it looks like when I get it flipped around. I'm going to bring the tailstock up. I'm going to put a divot in the bottom of the tenon so that when the time comes to turn the bottom off, if I choose to turn it off, put it on a jam chuck and turn it off, I'll know where center is. It makes it a lot easier to line up. So, just going to put the tailstock mark at the bottom. And if you forget to do that, it's not so much fun. So I'm going to take this off the faceplate, and I'm going to reverse it on the 4-jaw chuck, and I'll bring you back when I've got it flipped around and I'm ready to hollow out the inside. Alright, so we're all turned around here, mounted up in the 4-jaw chuck. I'm going to leave the tailstock in as long as I can just to keep things more secure. I do have a screw broken off here, so I got to work around that, and it's fairly deep, so it's probably in there about 1.5 inches, so I just got to be really careful around that. But I'm going to start taking some of the inside out of this now. So I'm really close to the bottom of the screw now. Alright, so I'm going to go just a little bit thinner than this. My tailstock's in the way now, but I always like to establish this inside lip of my bowl while there's lots of meat in here so it doesn't vibrate too much. And I'll stay at this until I get a really nice clean cut on this first bit, because it's really difficult to go back in afterwards, especially in irregular type wood like this. One thing you have to watch out for doing these types of pieces as well, there's a very, very sharp edge right there that would be just like a knife hitting your hand, so you got to be very careful not to get into that. So I am pretty happy with the quality of that cut and the finish, so I'm just going to touch up my gouge again. I'm going to take this down just a little bit thinner. Actually, I might take a little bit more out of here first so I can get down a little bit deeper again on the next pass. That's a nice, pretty nice clean cut. Very little bit of tear out right there, but I don't think it'll get any better than that. Alright, so I've sanded up the lip of this bowl, the rim, and I've done that before I finish the inside, just while it's still nice and stable. And when you have a piece like this, it kind of presents a safety issue. I would never sand this rim by hand with sandpaper, so I used a drill with a sanding pad, And you can see this kind of has a bit of a hook out on it here. So I turned it down so that this isn't going to grab, and I angled my sanding pad like away from the gap so that it rides. That'll glide over those gaps. Run the lathe at about 350 RPM. But you got to be really careful when there's something like that, because that can really cut you open. So you just have to be smart when you're doing them and never sand something like that by hand. You can use a block of wood with some sandpaper on it and angle it as well, but the farther your hands are away from that, the better. I'm getting close to the screw now. So I'm going to work away and take a little bit more of this out, and I'm going to try and part this off. There, we're free of that. Probably seems like an odd way to take the middle out of this bowl by cutting it from here down in. I do that sometimes in the center. This piece of wood particularly likes to be cut that way. It's a really clean cut, and it's cutting very easily that way, as opposed to going across here. It doesn't like that nearly as much. The trick is to be careful and not come out of your cut and bang into the side, because obviously there's a hole here and you don't want to ding up the inside of your bowl. So I'm just going to very carefully open this up a little bit, then I'll clean up those cuts. So I usually don't leave the lathe noise in on my videos, because I don't care for it myself when I'm watching them. I know there's lots of people who prefer that over the music, but here's next little bit is just going to be a real-time actual sound of how hard this wood is with a very sharp gouge. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that thickness, and that's not bad at all now. There's a few tool lines here to take out. They certainly look worse in the light than what they actually are. They're not that deep, so shouldn't take long. I'll start with 80 grit and I'll sand this up, and I'll bring you back when I'm going to turn off the bottom. Alright, so that turned out nice. Almost wish I could leave that foot on there, but I can't. I gotta turn it off. Okay, so we'll get this thing reversed and put it on, we either put it on a faceplate or a jam chuck, I'm not sure yet which. And we'll get this tenon turned off the bottom, and get it finished up and get some Danish oil on it. All right, so I've got this in my cold jaws here now, and just back that off so you can see that. So this is in the cold jaws, and it's as big as I can get in them actually. I've got this vacuum chuck, but the vacuum chuck is just going to get into this hole a little bit, so it's not going to work out for me. So this is probably the easiest way for me to do it. Do have the tailstock up with the brad point out of it, just to keep it in there. I'm just going to make nice light little cuts to get this down to something small, and then I'll finish off the dowel at the end, and hopefully it'll be on here good enough to sand up. So this seems to have a pretty good bite. I'm just going to go nice and easy. I'm going to take just a small carbide with a negative rake. Just need a little more to the center yet. It's not quite flat. And I got to take a little bit here at the edge. Okay, there we go. Got a little contour on it. That's nice. So I'm going to sand this up, and I'll bring you back when I'm over at the laser. Last week's video I did a review of this Ortur Laser Master 2 Pro laser engraver. Still learning how to use it. I probably should have gotten this just a little bit darker. I should have set the laser setting just a little higher percentage. But I'll leave a link in the description of that video, and there's a link in the description of this video if you're interested in checking one of these out. All right. Got the logo in the bottom now, and I'm going to put on a couple of coats of Danish oil. Antique Danish oil, it's just a clear, natural. Now, I normally would dump this right in here, but I've got obviously holes, so I'm going to put it off to the side and put some in and work it from there. Well, if you're still with me, thanks so much for hanging around. I really appreciate it. Thanks again to everyone who subscribed to the channel, and to everyone who watches the videos. I appreciate that as well. If you like what you saw and you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And do leave a comment and a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That helps a lot. All right, I'm going to let that soak in a little bit. Then I'll wipe it down and give it another coat or two. And I'll put some pictures up at the end, same as usual. And we'll see you next time.